Large numbers of first-time homebuyers are getting into ugly credit card debt for renovations. I think I have a solution. Where are money markets headed in this booming economy? An East Coast RE/MAX agent, Noel Borrero, stops by to tell us there's no inventory issue if you know where to look. All coming up next on this episode of Reasonably Speaking. Hey, thanks for checking in. Another episode, our fourth episode of Reasonably Speaking with Mike and Sean. I'm Sean Thompson.
I'm Michael Bordinsky.
Hey.
Hey.
Mikey B, Mikey Mike. I haven't seen you in a while, man. How you doing?
What's been going on here?
I know. I feel like it's been forever since our last episode.
It's been too long.
It's been too long, and I think as the fourth quarter gears up here, you'll probably get a few more of these because we got a couple of events coming up, and I'm sure that we'll get a chance to do this a little more often. Hey, catch me at Facebook at The Renovation Guy, on Twitter at 203K, on YouTube at The Renovation Guy, Instagram at FHA203K, and of course, if you listen to podcasts specifically on iTunes and Spotify and Pocket Cast, you can get me at All Things Sean Thompson, The Renovation Guy. You can get my man over here, Michael Bordinsky, at Facebook at Michael Bordinsky, spell his name right, Borodinski, on Twitter at Mike Bordinsky, and Instagram at MikeBoro0705. How was that? Right?
That was perfect.
All right. So hey, let's jump right in. First things first. You know, I sort of tweeted this out and I sent it out through post yesterday, but I was astonished at this. It's 1/3 of homeowners fund renovations with credit cards. And when you think about that, it's a lot of first-time home buyers that are buying and they're dealing with the house the way it is, and then they choose to renovate it later. However, they put down so little, you know, that getting the renovation financing after you close is difficult.
It's at least they think it is.
Yeah.
The other problem is they're not thinking ahead. They're thinking behind. Mm-hmm. So by thinking behind is you bought the house, you got yourself a mortgage, you put as minimal down as you could. You weren't thinking about doing anything to the house before you bought it, except you knew stuff had to get done. And then you find out there's a lot more done to do than you really planned. So what do you do? You're right. I think there's a barrier that exists at the professional level, meaning that when you're buying a house, you may not always get told or shown how to get the money to renovate the house when you buy it at the same time. And to me, that's the trick. Like, that's the solution when you think about it. You know, so, and I've done several videos on this, which you can check if you want, you know, but when you get credit cards after closing, the monthly payment you end up with is far greater than if you would have dealt with the reno when you bought the house and put it in a mortgage over the life of the loan. And a lot of professionals out there won't tell you how to do this. You know, so, and obviously the bigger equation is if you're going to finance it with credit cards, even if you think you can get a good deal up front, maybe a 0% deal for 12 months, right? It's going to run out. And then next thing you know, you're paying the piper, and now you're at 18% or more on these credit card bills, paying minimum payments just so that you can keep up. And you're paying so much more over time.
I think back to that, and you can look up this. This is, I believe it was Jimmy Carter, you know, who had a public service announcement on TV, and he broke up the normal broadcasting, the normal production that night on television, and interrupted
unscheduled
interruption.
Yeah.
And what he talked about was credit. He talked about credit, and he really got concerned that we're not going to know what it's like to just push off our debt until it's too late. You know, and I look at it now, and we're probably 30, 40 years into the credit card experiment. You know, what we all realize is that stuff doesn't go away.
No, it accumulates, and like I said, the credit card companies, you know, the creditors, they want to lend, so they want
they're not going to necessarily stop you from overextending yourself.
Right, right. So the trick is get it put in a loan, all right, and you're able to pay it off. You know, the payoff is so much easier to pay off over the life of the loan than it is to try and deal with it in credit cards, because it'll chase you around for the rest of your life.
And the most important aspect, again, is having the conversation with a qualified professional, both on the real estate side and on the lending side, that being us here at Caliber, who are renovation specialists, who can walk you through that process to understand that you can make the improvements to the home and plan them and finance them in advance.
And don't forget to check out my videos on monthly payment, affordable monthly payment, and also getting them wrapped up and showing you what that looks like. Check out those videos. Those are actually pretty good to look at and get a real feel for what we're talking about here today.
But you're hitting on something very important, that is monthly payment, because we'll get into this a little bit later, but interest rates aren't going down anymore, and what you want to do is get yourself locked into something you can afford up front before you get yourself involved with a payment on a mortgage and then start dealing with credit card payments on top of that.
That's a good point.
You're putting yourself in a disadvantageous situation that you don't have to do.
And among the demographics changing their renovations, I mean, renovation, if you look at, our third quarter 2018 overall size of the market, we're still at $353 billion, in renovation. It's a big market. We got a lot of millennials out there who aren't afraid to just throw it on a credit card. All right. Trust me. Watch the videos. It explains everything, why it's cheaper to do it this way. All right. So I don't want to beat a dead horse on that. Mike, let's move on.
Okay. What do you want to talk about?
Money markets are changing really rapidly. I can't keep up with the news data on interest rates. I know we got a great economy, all right, and the numbers are back on that. It's indisputable, if you will, that we got a great economy. But what does that mean for the cost of money going forward? Not just for a home, but in general.
Well, there's so many different factors going on right now, and one of the things that's got people concerned is that rates are going up. And that's been a concern. This is the first time we've had a sustained movement higher in interest rates, sustained for this long a period of time, in quite some time. It's been over 6 years since rates have been this high. But everything is a matter of perspective. So we've got historically still rates, hovering just below or at around the 5% level. And when you look at things over the past 35 years, they still haven't been this low. I mean, you can go back to the last few years when we saw rates in the 3s and in the 4s, but we're not too far from that, but we certainly are far from when rates were in double digits. Okay, so that's the first thing. The other thing that's happened over time is that as the housing market recovered, we saw a pretty sustained movement and probably excessive movement in equity values. So values started going up. What that means, when values go up, prices go up. When prices go up and interest rates go up, it's a bad combination. But what are some of the things that have caused prices to go up? And that has been a drop of inventory. And we're talking from one end of the coast to the other end of the coast. There was a major shift in terms of a lack of available inventory, and that that created a seller's market. It created an excess demand on the part of buyers, and it pushed prices probably too high, too fast.
Now, lack of inventory, I understand it has a lot to do with new home builders. All right, and
it does.
And the speed in which new home builders can get their companies in a position to provide housing, is where we missed the mark. Call it 4 or 5 years ago, right?
Well, the home building industry was the slowest to recover from the crisis of 2008. The financial crisis affected just about every industry, sent us into a terrible recession. They called it the Great Recession. It was one of the worst recessions we've had, going all the way back to the Great Depression. But the housing industry was the was the slowest to recover, and accordingly, builders are still trying to catch up in providing new housing and new inventory into the market. And to your point, only the last few years have they been trying to catch up.
Well, you think about it, right? The process of a builder taking, let's call it 50 acres and say, I'm going to put 100 units on those 50 acres. That's not an instantaneous process.
Not at all.
That's 5-6 years in the making, right?
Well, it all depends. It depends on the market, and it depends on each state in terms of how they are regulated. For example, in New Jersey, where we're broadcasting from, in New Jersey, we have a highly over-regulated market. We don't also have a limited amount of available land to build on, so it is very difficult. For example, in New York, most parts of New York and most of New Jersey, to buy usable land and then develop it into housing, which is both marketable and, most importantly, and here's the issue, affordable.
Well, you think about it, and that's a really good point, and this as new construction is your strong suit, to sell a house, to sell a piece of new construction in 2018, it had to be on the efforts of activities and money you spent as a builder in 2012, 2013. Right?
Correct. They were buying this land or trying to develop this land or, over the past few years. Okay. And the good news is that values have gone up. So the builder who probably paid less for the land and it's worth more is hopefully able to make a decent profit, but hopefully not, gouging the market too much and making the price unaffordable for the buyer, because it's got to be conducive to the market. But also keep in mind, we're talking about, there's so many dynamics here. We're talking about a tale of multiple markets, okay? And what I mean by that is what we're seeing in terms of housing activity on the East Coast and the West Coast is similar, and I'll explain to you why. And other parts of the country, there's still very, very strong segments of the market that are going on, because you do have a strong economy. You've got historically low, and I mean as low as it's ever been in terms of recording unemployment. You've got low inflation. You've got, although wages aren't rising as fast as everyone would have liked, they are still rising. So more people have money in their pockets. They've seen their 401ks go up. They've seen their investments go up. They basically feel empowered to go out and buy a home. That's the good news. That
is the really good news. And I'll tell you, we talked about this before on the show a couple of times, and that's the common sense factor, right? And that is, 0.25%, 0.3%, even a whole percent to interest rates might not be the difference, or should mean the difference in payment and affordability for you. If you're looking to buy a house, it's still a great time to do that. And there's also conflicting theory in our government as to how much we should continue to raise interest rates.
There's a lot of this is an interesting thing. So the Fed had what was called an accommodated of interest rate policy. Federal Reserve, I'm talking about in terms of using the word Fed. The Federal Reserve is the central bank that basically defines or sets the tone in terms of the cost of money. And the cost of money is really what banks are borrowing at and what they ultimately lend at. And they've been moving interest rates higher over time to try to get out in front of an economy that's improving, and to try to forestall any potential spiraling inflation, Sean. And that's important, because if inflation goes too high, then everything is going to go off the rails, because then interest rates will go much higher, much faster than would be sustainable, and would adversely affect this marketplace.
And we saw what chasing your tail against inflation with interest rates looks like in the late 80s.
That's correct.
And we had rates 13-14%.
That's correct.
All right, mortgage rates 13-14%.
And we don't want that, but there's very unusual is that President Trump has weighed in his feeling is that the Fed is moving too aggressively. Now, keep in mind the Fed is an independent body. They do not make decisions based on political overtones or undertones or political pressure. They are setting their own policy, and they are trying to manage through a stronger, improving economy. We've got GDP anywhere from 3 to 4% and low employment. Not too hot inflation. It's almost a Goldilocks scenario, but they feel that they need to raise rates a few more times to get to neutral.
And then again, I heard through the grapevine that our president is a fan of real estate too. So
he is a fan of real estate.
He may be a little biased in the way that he looks at it.
Well, we're going to keep this politically neutral because it's going to set off all kinds of alarms on our podcast, and we don't want to do that.
I didn't go there.
Right.
Only to say that, as a real estate advocate, I could understand his thinking around.
Well, he's trying to protect. He's trying to protect the housing market because from rates go too high too fast. I get that, but there's another factor that we have to discuss that is potentially adversely affecting housing, and that's regarding tax policy. Now, the new tax laws. Overall, for the most part, we've lowered corporate tax rates. That did wonders. That's basically bringing back a whole bunch of money that was being parked overseas by all the major corporations. So all that money is coming back into the United States to be spent. Corporations are spending it on reinvestment. They're spending it on stock buybacks, but that's getting put back into the economy one way or the other.
And that is big. That is big. So, Mike, I know we could really shoot the breeze on that topic for quite some time. Folks, reasonably speaking, come here, and check out what's going on with the economy, check out what's going on with mortgage rates, check out what's going on with new construction, with renovation. And that's what this show is designed for, professionals like you to really get some usable information so you can use in your day-to-day business, and make money in real estate. Mike, I had a call the other day from an East Coast agent who we're going to have on in just a minute, who called me to say, hey, I watch your stuff. I watch what you guys are doing. And I agree, there's no inventory issue if you know where to look for the properties.
That's the key.
All right, so coming up next, we're going to have Noel Borrero, spend a little time with us on the show.
Noel.
Sit tight.
If you've applied for a new loan, you can quickly check status. You can also upload secure documents needed to support your application. If you'd like personal guidance, locate your local Caliber branch or loan consultant. You can call, send an email, or get directions to a Caliber office. Wherever you go, we'll be there too. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
So, I have spent some time talking about inventory, and we did a second ago talk about lack of inventory.
Yes.
But there's some solutions out there. I believe in a lot of markets, not just in the Northeast, that there is a shadow inventory of homes being sold at a discount because of the condition that it's in, that it's not obvious to me that you will connect with the right lending professional or real estate professional that will help you buy those homes. They're generally reserved for investors or cash buyers, but that's a small part of the market. So what we practice is anyone can do that, kind of like what you see on HGTV, right? That's exactly what Property Brothers and Fixer Upper and those shows are selling, is that the end user, the homeowner, the first-time home buyer, you, could actually participate in these transactions. So I bought, and I was happy to hear from you yesterday, and I want to introduce Noel Borrero, who's with me. I don't want to take. Why don't you tell us where you're from and kind of what you do, because your story was really awesome that I invited you to come here and spend some time with us.
Well, I appreciate being here and talking to you. And my name is Noel Borrero. I work out of Remax Platinum Realtors, based out of North Brunswick. Mm-hmm. Okay, and pretty much handle the Middlesex County areas, as far as with assisting clients and looking, for certain homes and properties.
Now, what I love is the story that you told me earlier on this week, and what we preach is exactly what you did. you know, and it felt it. Listen, I'm not going to steal your thunder, but it felt a whole lot better coming from you than me because that's what you do. You know? So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, you mean there's a real story to share?
Yeah.
We're not making stuff up. We have an actual story to share.
This is absolutely. So we're talking now going back maybe about 2.5 months time. There was a property that I was searching for one of my clients out in the Woodbridge area, and we've been searching for quite some time. You know, they see a lot of the pretty houses and the nice houses, and you know,
everybody likes to see the pretty houses first.
They always do. They always do, Mike. So but you know, it came to the point where we have to pinpoint certain details that the clients or you know that their family are looking for. So sure enough, you know, searching around, and I did my research and found the property in Woodbridge that was actually listed with another agency, and it was on the market for 10 months.
10 months.
10 months, and I'm like...
Now, you're an agent.
Yes.
There's got to be something wrong if a house is on the market for 10 months.
I didn't...
Is it haunted?
Yeah, who knows? Who knows? But I didn't get it, so, you know, I did my due diligence, you know, for my clients, did some research, and believe it or not, you know, the home was, you know, out of the 70s, you know, it's very dated. They had some issues that they were going into and fixing. So sure enough, it led all the way up to the expiration of
the listing.
The listing.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, let me see if I could get in there and try to, you know, and stir up something, you know, so my clients could view at least. So now I'm thinking, all right, as soon as these listings expire, what happens? It gets out in the open. Everybody is calling up, trying to retain, you know, the owner's business. Now, I'm pretty sure at that time, you know, if personally myself, I had a property sitting out 10 months, you know, dealing with an agent and not seeing no results, I'd be, you know, a little weary.
Yeah.
So sure enough, I'm like, well, what would be a different way to go about it? So I'm like, you know what? Let's utilize social media. You know, I'm like, well, wait a minute. Okay, let me try to see if maybe they're out on Instagram or Facebook. Sure enough, found located a profile on Facebook, did my due diligence, research and everything, checked out their friends of a friend that knows one of my associates.
Okay.
Sure enough, I sent out a message, say, hey, can you do me a favor? Can you try to reach out to this lady that has a property in Woodbridge? You know, I would see if she's still interested in selling it. Sure enough, I kid you not, it might as well have been about an hour's time after I sent the Facebook message, I get a phone call from a Florida number. She's not even in state.
So the owner of this property had already either vacated or was living somewhere else.
That's it. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And I wonder, like the price of the house. Like for some reason, it sat for 10 months, and no investor came along and said, "I want that."
No.
It
was. We're talking about a little above the threes. You know, mid 330s.
So it was clearly not enough in it for an investor, and investors generally are equity shoppers. They want to buy for the rock bottom absolute price. It takes all the risk out of the game.
You know, but maybe this guy was, you know, maybe the average investor is smelling the fact that it was just a stalled listing and not a foreclosure or a short sale, or maybe that's what they're smelling first or sniffing around for. And this didn't fit necessarily the mold, other than it's just a house that just needed something. A new marketing strategy, or you know, sometimes people look at it and say, all right, let's see how much further the house is going to drop in price.
Right.
So let me get this straight. Let's back to your story here, because the house is sitting for 10 months.
Right.
You say, wait a minute, after this listing expires, I'm going to track down this seller, you know, and I could potentially sell this for them, and I have a buyer, and you do it through Facebook, friend of a friend of a friend, and you've actually contacted the seller.
On the contrary, the seller contacted me. So
that's the call from Florida.
That's the call from Florida.
Yep.
Now here's the best thing. When I received the phone call, sure enough, surprised, I'm like looking, and I started speaking to the ladies, you know, and explained to her what, you know, who I am and what I was trying to accomplish. And she's like, you know what? I was wondering why at 8:30 in the morning I'm getting bombarded with phone calls from agencies say, hey, can I list your home? Can I list your home? You know, and I was like, nope, I don't have any time. Hung up. But a friend of mine reached out to me and said, hey, are you still looking to sell your property in Woodbridge? Because I know someone that has a possibility that may bring a buyer and view the home. Who are you going to trust more? You know what I'm saying? Like that's a referral from someone that she knew. So, and sure enough, got the phone call, and one thing led to another, and it just happened to be that she wanted to come back to, she lived in Florida, she wanted to come back to New Jersey to visit her family. She has a daughter out here, and to set up and take care of some situations and stuff with the home. I'm like, well, great. Okay, when you're coming in, a couple days, it was a Monday. I was like, okay, let's meet, and then we can speak some more, and then possibly give me a chance to explain, hey, I have buyers looking for these homes.
So that's great for a number of reasons, but I would ask you a question is, there's lots of homes out there, and I've recently been on this tour, around the East Coast, sort of talking about going on Zillow, choosing as is, TLC, fixer upper, buyer responsible for, and it backs you into this whole set of inventory that not a lot of realtors want to show, or at the very least aren't enthusiastic about it. All right. So what made you enthusiastic about, this particular process and getting people in front of homes like this? Like, what makes you different that way?
Okay. Well, I come from a long line of family contractors. We're talking fathers, uncles, brothers, the whole works, And basically, I took more of the design aspect, and I started, designing interior living spaces and working and changing.
You see through the smoke.
Yes.
That's the key. You can see beyond the walls.
The diamonds in the rough.
That's it.
That's it.
And if you can sort of translate that vision or make it easy to understand for a potential buyer, that's a game changer, because the average buyer can never see through the smoke.
Right.
Never see beyond the walls. Never. They're going to just look at the clutter, look at the condition, look at this or feel the smell, and turn around and walk out.
And that is the issue that we're having today, and the reason why our inventory is where it's at. But that to me is an entire industry. Like, it's untapped.
Would you say that a lot of agents are missing an opportunity to be relevant in their market because they don't know how to show ugly homes?
Absolutely.
See, you heard it from somebody other than me just now?
Yeah.
Well, he's been saying it for as long as I remember. So now you heard it from somebody who really knows how to do it. So
See, why are you doing like that?
does that mean that you don't? I wasn't sure. Maybe that didn't come out right.
No, it was fine.
No, he's good with that. But it is absolutely true. And what happens is, that's what it is. And where the real estate agents that I work with and work with teams, and these are great individuals, everyone is shooting for the stars, and there's quite a few out there, but the problem is, if they're out there, everyone's gunning for it.
That's right.
And we don't have a chance for some of the buyers who are maybe not particularly in those type of brackets, or may not have the right budgets. Okay, well, this is what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? We can create it.
That's right.
So
we
look,
can work together.
Well, look, it's you and I were talking, Noel, before the show started, and it was the same thing. It's like the average agent is looking for the least path of resistance to buy and show, to list and show and to sell the turnkey house.
Right.
The average lender, the average mortgage lender, is looking for the vanilla A+, 20% down, perfect credit, perfect income loan that can be done at the drop of a hat.
Right.
There's a lot more options available to buyers to buy that ugly home and make it beautiful, to create value for themselves, and to still have a mechanism to finance it.
Well, I tell you, we covered a lot. Before we wrap this up, really, Noel, I'm going to ask you one other question, and that is, if I'm an agent, all right, and then I'm going to have you make sure you give out your contact information so people know where to find you, right? But if I'm an agent and I'm looking to transition my business, all right, so that I make it through the next 9, 10, 12 months, which you're going to really need to supplement, pretty homes with this inventory we've been talking about. If I want to get into that and I want to transition, what are the top 3 things you think I need to focus on?
Number 1 is working and networking with the specialists in the industry, such as Caliber Home Loans. This situation was done, my hat's off to Sam Pauls, who was a great assistant throughout the entire process. And normally, typically...
And Sam's one of our renovation lending professionals here at Caliber Home Loans, so good plug.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And offer decline options. And that's the ticket. That's something where you want to turn over and say, hey, the ball's in your court.
So number 1, work with the right renovation lending, with the right mortgage lender.
Right.
What else?
Okay. Listen to the client. Listen to exactly what they're looking for. Just listen to them. Let them speak. Let them say, "Hey, I'm looking for this. I need to have space."
You mean clients want new kitchens,
They
finished
want all that.
basements,
Yeah.
nice floors,
So,
outdoor setups, right?
Mm-hmm.
All these things that
they want all
homes
that.
don't have.
That's important. Listen to the client is
Yeah,
important.
listen. Number 1, listen, and then also do your due diligence. Do your research. Take your time to search out different properties and show them options. You're going to show them the ones that are nice, they're out there, but once again, let's show them the ones that, hey, this is a great neighborhood. It's got good square footage. Guess what? We can do this. If we work with the great teams and contractors that are within these programs, and they know what they're doing. They're experienced, and it just, that's how it starts.
Well, those are the 3 things. Let's not overcomplicate this. Hey, you watched HGTV, you watch Property Brothers, we do that. Sign here.
There you
right? It's really that simple. Noel, thanks for coming by.
It's a
thanks for
pleasure.
spending time on the show. I really appreciate that story. And it ended with a Caliber Home Loans renovation lending loan. Come
What
on,
could be
man.
better?
Come on. Folks, thanks for checking in. This was Reasonably Speaking. This was episode 4. Episode 4, Mike, we're moving along pretty quickly.
There's got to be an episode 5 coming our way.
There's got to be an episode 5 coming our way. Folks, check in. Thanks for watching one more time. I'm Sean.
I'm Mike.
And this was Noel coming in and hanging with us. Have a good one.
Take care.